The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome from the General Assembly in the City of Richmond. I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Comcast. And a very warm welcome to Randy Minchew, delegate from Loudoun County, more specifically the Leesburg area. That's right. Tell us a little bit about what's going on economically in Loudoun County and in Leesburg.
My district, Woody, is really three counties. I've got the benefit of having Loudoun, Clark, and Frederick County. My district goes from the historic town of Leesburg down through Virginia's wonderful Hunt Country and Middleburg, crosses the Blue Ridge Mountains into Clark County, where southern Clark County is my district, and goes all the way to Interstate 81 in Frederick County. So I've got three wonderful counties with a diverse economy, starting out from my historic hometown of Leesburg, but also including a lot of other beautiful areas in Virginia where we've got rural and urban economic development activities going on.
A lot of economic development. I was surprised to hear earlier that the wine industry is flourishing in Loudoun County. Talk to us about how that developed and what's going on there.
Well, it's a great story. Back when I chaired the Economic Development Commission in Loudoun County, we had 7 wineries in the entire county. Now we've got well over 35. 35, and that number may have changed since the last time I checked last week. But what Loudoun County has done, not just Loudoun, also Clark County, has basically found that in the rural economy areas of these two counties, we've got good soils. We're near major metropolitan areas. We've got kind of the Hunt Country ambiance where we've had Kentucky Derby winners and great historic sites. And what the wine industry has done is basically fuse with our historic preservation and tourism, cultural asset appreciation markets. And we have limousines, Woody, and buses coming from Washington. They will tour our Civil War battlefields. They'll go to our wineries, spend money in Loudoun County, and that's good for everybody.
It really is. And I understand the First Lady has been instrumental in that effort.
Absolutely. Maureen McDonald has been a wonderful ambassador of the Virginia wine industry. She has taken that on as a project. She and the governor took a whole bunch of Virginia wines to Europe when he went on a trade mission, and we even have Loudoun County wines being sold in Paris, France.
In France. And you also have soybeans going to China now,
I got to commend Secretary Todd Haymore of our Department of Agriculture. Everything from mussels from the northern neck to soybeans from southwest Virginia, Loudoun County wines. We're doing a great job in taking Virginia's very high-quality agricultural products and sell them around the world.
Now, within 25 miles of D.C., you have some very large employers, United Airlines, Orbital Science, SAIC, and others. Talk to us about how important they are to not only Loudoun County, but to the Commonwealth in general.
Well, what we have there, Woody, is, first of all, the primary airport serving the capital of the free world, Dulles Airport. And it's the only airport that serves our nation's capital that has the ability to handle freight and cargo. Reagan National and BWI are both kind of hemmed in and they can't grow. So we've got this great airport that will soon be served by rail connected to the Washington Metropolitan Metro system. In addition to that, we have what's called May East, which is the largest high trunk of fiber optic lines. Over 60% of the world's internet traffic comes through Loudoun County.
Over 60%?
Imagine you've got this crossroads.
Yes. Internet
traffic comes through Loudoun County due to the proximity of these fiber lines. So we have employers that are information technology based. America Online has its world headquarters in Loudoun County. Orbital Sciences, this great company that puts private rockets in space. And what we found there is that information technology industry, on both sides of the county line, Fairfax and Loudoun around Dulles Airport, has really grown, and that's a good, clean industry that provides great jobs and great additions to our tax base.
Now, you've also had an initiative to transform our rural economic development. Talk to us about how that's going.
Well, I had the opportunity about 10 years ago, Woody, of chairing the Loudoun County Rural Economic Development Task Force. I was the chairman of the county's Economic Development Commission long before I got involved in serving the General Assembly. And we had some great successes in the Dulles Airport area of eastern Loudoun County, bringing in companies that would create jobs. And we had a great run of successes. And after I stepped down, we started thinking that we could take the same economic development know-how, good old-fashioned capitalist based gifts, and apply that to our rural areas, which are very critical in Loudoun County. We love them. It's a different kind of economic development. You respect open space. You respect our historic and cultural attributes. It's different from economic development in the East. And it's kind of focused on helping rural landowners make more money. Because if they make more money by growing grapes for wines or being involved in the tourism industry, they're most likely to keep the area looking rural. And we have in our district, Woody, Civil War battlefields that there's a lot of cultural tourism that goes on, and that meshes very well with our wine industry. Matter of fact, we have every Saturday in the springtime when the redbuds and the dogwoods are blooming, you'll see people coming in limousines and buses looking at our Civil War battlefields where Colonel John Mosby did his work, and then buying Loudoun County wines on the side. So we're very pleased that rural economic development is kind of been brought to equal standing with the more urban economic development.
Now, jobs are very important to you.
Absolutely.
And the state has fared pretty well. I think the unemployment rate is down to about 5.5%, but that still needs improvement. What is the Commonwealth doing in order to attract new employers, keep the ones we have here?
Well, we're in the fourth quarter of the McDonald administration, and I think as we go back and we look at the McDonald administration, we'll recognize that we had, in my opinion, the finest job-creating governor that we've ever had. At a time when we were suffering from a recession with a lot of job layoffs, stock market going down, when Governor McDonald took office in 2009, we had a number of issues, both in our budget at the General Assembly, but also with increased unemployment. Now Virginia has the second lowest unemployment rate in the entire South, and it's continuing to go down. We're down at levels that we've not seen over 10 years. In my home area, we have an unemployment level that's even lower than Virginia's. We're down around 4.7% unemployment in Loudoun County. So there are many good jobs in Loudoun County. Our businesses are flourishing, and we're not going to stop with our economic development, job-creating mode. But that being said, we can also appreciate that we've had public policy in place that are doing the job, and the fact that we've got unemployment in my district around 4.7% is a sign that these policies are working.
And of course, one of the governor's signature initiatives this year is a transportation plan that set out a very bold challenge, not the least of which is the elimination of the gas tax. It would be the first in the nation. I'm sure you've examined that plan. Talk to us about that plan.
Appreciate that. First of all, we're really pleased that the governor has chose to focus on K-12 education and transportation funding. In my area of Virginia, it is critically important. We have congestion in Virginia that's probably known around the world. And the governor had to choose a couple of priorities for this fourth quarter of his administration. And we in Northern Virginia are really pleased he chose transportation funding. The governor showed some boldness in coming up with a plan that hopefully will have bicameral and bipartisan support. And what has recently happened, really, it's just as late as yesterday afternoon, Woody, the House Finance Committee had all the transportation funding bills together for one big hearing.
And they're about, what, 4 in addition to the governor's proposal, I believe?
At least 4.
Yes.
I could just start taking names, Delegate Watts, Delegate Russ, Delegate Lemunyan, and the list goes on. And most of what these bills have done, they have been what we call in the General Assembly incorporated into the governor's bill that is being carried by a very powerful, respected patron, Speaker Bill Howell. For instance, I filed a bill that was incorporated into the governor's bill, and our governor has been very open in saying, I filed a bill to get the intellectual juices going, we can start talking about it, but I'm very open to considering other ideas. So what we had is many patrons, Woody, incorporating their bill into the governor's bill. So there's probably going to be a get-together where we see what we can do on transportation funding to get the number of votes in both houses. And the governor's shown some flexibility. So what he's done is saying, if you've got a good idea in a bill that may not be in my bill, let's incorporate your good ideas into mine, and we'll sit down in the legislative process and see if we can kind of create an amalgamation of good ideas that will advance the ball for transportation funding.
Yeah, because his bill has been criticized from both sides, which probably means it's a good working document to begin with. The 17.5 cents elimination of the gas tax, for example, has been criticized, especially in relation to the fact that those who don't live in the Commonwealth will no longer be subject to it, and that brings in, as I understand it, between 20 and 30% of the revenues. I guess the thinking is that the increased activities at retail stores through the sales tax will make up that difference.
Exactly, Woody. Now, the sales tax has been serving us well in Virginia as the primary driver of transportation funding for well over 40 years. However, it is a tax that has kind of a flat trajectory. If we go further into the 21st century with the federal CAFE standard, miles per gallon, going as high as 55 miles a gallon within the next 10 years. Electric cars. The Commonwealth is changing its fleet of cars with natural gas. And by the year 2025, Woody, we may well see that most of the cars driving our highways are not gasoline powered. And if they are gasoline powered, they're these hybrid cars that have very low mile per gallon. But in my opinion, the gas tax has done a real good job. And it's a fair tax in that it's a user fee. If you don't buy gas, I mean, if you don't drive the roads over Commonwealth, you don't buy the gas. And I personally think that the gas tax is something that probably should be included in the governor's plan somehow, some way. You know, Woody, because I represent horse country, I'll share this with you. The analogy I would draw is the gas tax is like a 15-year-old plow horse. The law of diminishing returns is setting in. That horse has done a great job for many years, but the horse is not as strong and can't plow as much as it used to. So you clearly have to start thinking about a new plow technology to take over when your 15-year-old horse has gone away. But it may be premature to send that hard-working 15-year-old plow horse out to pasture just yet. I think it would be a good idea to wring a few more years of efficiency out of the gas tax as we start thinking about a new technology. What that may well be, Woody, is kind of an amortization of the gas tax as we start moving on to another technology. And Woody, there's been a bunch of things talked about. The sales tax is clearly a consumption tax that has kind of a steep trajectory. But there's been ideas that are really innovative, such as my colleague in the General Assembly, Delegate May, who's an electrical engineer.
Yes.
He once said, well, we can measure the energy consumed by cars, be it electric, natural gas, or standard gasoline. And why not have kind of a way of measuring the energy that's consumed to put a car on the road and tax that energy consumption? Now, I don't know how you do that, but if you were to have some kind of a technology where you can measure energy consumed to keep those four wheels driving down the highway, you could apply that to any of the various energy that could be used. But we're not there yet in figuring that out.
Of course, he's certainly capable of doing that given the number of patents he holds already.
That he does. He's one of two engineers that we have in the General Assembly, a brilliant man and a good person we have in our Loudoun County delegation.
Now, the Commonwealth has been known as having a business-friendly environment, and at one time was rated #1 in those terms. It has dropped, and as I understand it, the sole reason for that are our transportation difficulties.
That's what we hear too. Matter of fact, the governor and Governor Rick Perry of Texas, whenever a new rating comes out, CNBC or whomever, it's always Virginia or Texas. And when I worked in the governor's office, we would see a poll come out, and if Virginia was ahead of Texas, Governor McDonald would call Governor Perry. And if Texas was ahead, Governor Perry would call Governor McDonald. Kind of a good rivalry there. But I think we've reached a point where we are seeing that our really lack of funding for critical infrastructure is creating a point where we may not get to that #1 position again until we start spending money on fixing our transportation system. We have some employers who are saying, I love Northern Virginia, I love Dulles Airport, I love Tyson's Corner, but these hour and 15-minute commutes are just something I don't want to put my people through, and I'd rather stay in Yankton, South Dakota or something. So I think The governor fully appreciated this, said if we're going to keep on growing our jobs and bringing good employers to Virginia, we have to take an honest look at how we can improve our road system.
And of course, no one likes to rely on our friends in Washington, but unfortunately, one of the pieces of the governor's transportation package is contingent upon revenues from the retail sale of internet products and services. Now, we're supposed to pay that already, but hardly any people do. Some people don't think it's prudent or wise to rely upon Washington for anything. So I'm sure that's going to be part of the discussion and the debate in terms of the amalgamation of all these bills.
Absolutely. The governor has included that as a part of his plan, and that's a fair amount of money there, Woody, that the federal government could start enforcing, and that money would flow through back to the states. And so most of the transportation plans have included that component, but you're absolutely right. It is contingent upon the House of Representatives and the Senate actually getting legislation through both houses, and as we know over the past couple of years, that's not been possible. Heck, it's been, what, 3.5 years since the United States Senate even got a budget to the President.
I know there are a number of pieces of legislation that you are pursuing, so let's turn our attention to those more specifically. You have some legislation dealing with the Uniform Statewide Building Code. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a bill that I put in on behalf of the town of Leesburg. Basically, towns are part of counties, and every person in a town pays the exact same county taxes as people who are in the county but in unincorporated areas. And in some cases, there have been cases come up where the county building official has not been exercising his maintenance responsibilities in towns, saying, why in the town, why don't you get your own building official? And as long as we have towns to be part of counties, unlike cities that are not part of counties, I wanted to just clarify that the local building official for the county can also work in towns.
I see.
And we had that issue come up in Leesburg where the town council wanted the county building official, whose salary is partially paid by town taxpayers, to help us in building maintenance and other code enforcement issues in the town of Leesburg. So that's kind of a clarifying amendment. I think many towns in Virginia will appreciate that clarification so that they can work in partnership with counties. And because our system is that towns are part of counties, you got to work together.
Exactly.
And that will encourage more cooperation, I think.
And in conjunction with transportation, I know you have a motor fuels tax initiative.
Yeah, I basically was looking at how we can wring a few more years of efficiency out of the gas tax, knowing full well that we have to amortize away from that. And I was drawn really to the fact that many jurisdictions that have exercised self-help solutions, Loudoun, Fairfax, Prince William, and others, those local boards of supervisors really have a laser-like focus on how they could spend money very efficiently to benefit their constituents. Quite frankly, I think the local boards and governing bodies know better than the Commonwealth Transportation Board where to spend that money. And it dawned on me when Loudoun County did a staff report looking at every little gap in the roads. And it was a microcosmic look that basically said if we had $85,000, we could fix this, connect these two roads. And I started thinking that if we could get money into the hands of these localities, they can do pinpoint, efficient uses of money and really get transportation going. We're not talking about the mega projects. These are small things. And so what this bill would propose is that as we move forward with the governor's plan, at their option, this is a local option, localities could add on a gas tax up to 10 cents a gallon, where with 100 cents on the dollar coming back to the locality. Quite often in Northern Virginia, Woody, you hear these localities saying, well, all these gas taxes, they go down to Richmond, and they help build these projects down in counties that we've never heard of. And while we're all together as a Commonwealth working on road improvements, there is some validity in that concern that Northern Virginia, which is the economic driver of our state in terms of jobs and tax base, we should have ability where a locality could get back 100 cents on the dollar if they choose. So this idea is one that is kind of a little adjunct behind the bigger bills going forward that basically empowers our local counties and cities, if they want to do a self-help solution on transportation, to have a fair way of getting cash to do it.
You mentioned Metro earlier, and there's always something going on around the Dulles Toll Road, and I know you have an initiative there as well.
Yeah, basically, a few years ago, the really in 2006, Governor Kane decided that the Dulles Toll Road, which was built by the Commonwealth as a toll road, that toll road would be basically transferred to the Washington Metropolitan Airports Authority, where they would have the tolls from that to fund the building of Dulles Rail. That's kind of been the financing mechanism that was put in place in 2006. But regrettably, Woody, the bonds floated by the Washington Metropolitan Airports Authority to start building this, what they call the Silver Line, pretty high interest rates, because the airport authority doesn't have AAA paper like we do in Virginia. Yes. As a matter of fact, for the Phase 2 bonds that are going to be floated sometime within the next year or so, the interest rate on that is going to be around 6 to 6.5%.
Wow, that's a big cost increase.
Absolutely, over 3% more, because unlike Virginia, which is AAA credit, the Washington Metropolitan Airports Authority has about BBB minus credit on Standard & Poor's and Moody's. So I had an idea, Woody, of finding a way where we could help the airport authority get a lower interest rate, with proviso being, if we can help you get a lower interest rate, you pass that savings on to lower tolls. My whole goal here, Woody, is to lower the tolls on the Dulles Toll Road. And there is a vehicle called moral obligation, where the Commonwealth could, without spending a dime of taxpayer dollars, allow for its moral obligation credit backing to stand behind the authority's bonds. That could drop about 3% off the bonds, saving millions of dollars, which the authority has already told us they would put right into reduction of tolls. So in theory, if this all works, we can use some of our credit very strategically without spending a dime of taxpayer dollars, and save millions in tolls paid by our commuters on the Dulles Toll Road as this new Silver Line Metro is being built.
Great. And of course, real property taxes are always an important issue at the local level, especially boards of supervisors, and I know that there's some legislation you have dealing with that.
Basically, I filed some legislation that, on behalf of Frederick County, that was more of an economic development jobs bill. There is in the state code a provision called the Land Use Taxation Program, that if you're an agricultural use, you pay reduction in taxes by virtue of being an agricultural farm. But when you change over to have a factory built or something that's a jobs creation facility, you pay a big chunk of change called rollback tax, where basically you pay back the 5 years of tax savings. Well, sometimes where you do a rezoning, that rollback tax is required on the day of rezoning, and sometimes that can be a six-figure bill.
Sure.
Frederick County was attracting some major job creation manufacturers. A rezoning was done in conformance to their comprehensive plan, and then the owner said, "You mean I got to pay close to $1 million in rollback tax when I haven't even pulled my building permit yet?" So Frederick County had an idea of allowing that tax to be deferred from the date of zoning until the date the factory is actually built, where there's income production. So this facilitates the manufacturer, the job creator, to actually go ahead and build his project. But Frederick County, in this case, would still get its rollback tax monies, but not very early in the game. And that's facilitating economic development, job creation.
Great. Now let's turn to another subject that you mentioned earlier, and that's the governor's initiatives in terms of our schools. And I know you have been involved for years with our youth, especially through the Boy Scouts of America.
You remember that, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I had to step down as being Scoutmaster when I got this new part-time job in Richmond, because I couldn't be there for Scoutmaster conferences. I'm still active in my troop in Leesburg, helping boys make the way to Eagle Scout. That's one of my beliefs, that if you stay in the program and you make Eagle Scout, our country's better. I think Scouting is the greatest youth leadership movement in the history of the world. But as one of his two key priorities, the governor said transportation funding and K through 12. And those are the two best priorities. You can't focus on everything. And those are just two great things the governor's focused on. There's a number of great K through 12 initiatives going forward that we had a press conference on yesterday, that are strengthening our teachers, protecting our schools to make sure they're safe places where kids can get a good education, a very safe and nurturing environment. We're also really benefited in the House that Delegate Kurt Cox, who's our majority leader, was a school teacher for many years, and he retired.
Yeah, he just retired, I think.
And that's a that's a benefit. While it's a loss for the school system in his district, it's a benefit for our Commonwealth because we've got a guy who's got actual knowledge of how teachers work and can prosper. And he's doing a full-time job bringing his education skills as a majority leader in the House. So because he's not having to drive on back to Colonial Heights to teach his AP government class, we've got Kurt Cox's know-how both in appropriations and in our K through 12 bills. So I anticipate we're going to get some great things done this year, due in large part to Kurt Cox's leadership as a retired school teacher, now devoting all of his time to the citizens of our Commonwealth.
And of course, part of the governor's education initiative for K through 12 includes a raise for school teachers.
Absolutely. The governor has appreciated that those standards of quality instruction teachers are already doing a great job, and they deserve a raise. And so the governor has put in an element in his budget. It's a local match. So basically, the Commonwealth pays part and the locality pays part. And teachers are probably the most underpaid professionals going. Their job is so critical, and by raising their salaries, we'll encourage more people to enter the teaching profession. And something else, Woody, that is in this plan this year is a program that I've loved for years called Teach for America.
Teach for America, yes.
As a matter of fact, my junior aide from last year that was helping me here in the General Assembly is now in the Teach for America program down in Texas. And it's a program where really the best and the brightest of our graduating college seniors are brought into this program to go into areas that really need high-quality teachers. And we're talking about the kind of students that apply for Teach for America and also for a Marshall or other type scholarship. And instead they go into teaching. Some of them stay in the teaching profession. They get a master's degree in teaching. So we have a bill that's going forward where our Commonwealth is using that Teach for America program that has been a terrific success. And again, once again, Delegate Kurt Cox is taking the lead on that. So we got some great things going on K-12.
Got about 30 seconds left, but there's a bill that was around last year. We're talking about education that's back before us. It's the Tim Tebow initiative to allow homeschool students to participate in athletics. Do you think it's going to pass this year?
I patroned that bill last year along with Delegate Bell and will again this year. I think it's a matter of fairness, Woody. In my district, we've got some young men who are homeschooled that local football coaches would love to have on their team. We failed by one vote in the Senate. It cleared the House, went to the Senate committee, failed by one vote. I think it's something that will pass this year, and I'm very optimistic.
Great. Thank you for being here, Delegate Randy Minchew from the 10th District.
Well, thank you, Woody. It's been an honor to see you this morning.
Great. Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I am Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.